Good morning, friends. You are listening to online lectures on soft skills, and you remember well that presently we are doing with advanced speaking skills, and in advanced speaking skills we are presently deliberating upon interviews. If you recollect the previous lectures on interviews, where we talked about what interviews are and what are the different types of interviews, and in that connection we also talked about the importance of job interviews. But before we go for job interviews, we actually need to have a thorough preparation, because any job first requires you to submit a resume. We have already talked about where to look for jobs, and in the previous lecture we also discussed how to prepare for, because before we apply for a job we have to assess ourselves, we have to measure our own capabilities, and once you have done that you would like to write a resume, prepare a resume. So in this part of the lecture we shall be talking about what resume is and what are the various formalities associated with resume. You often might have come across the terms resume and CV. You will find that these two words are used interchangeably. Some organizations require resume, some require CV. CV, the full form of CV, because CV is curriculum vitae, a Latin word which actually means the details of your qualification. So a CV is more detailed, and when we talk about resume, resume is actually a French word which means a sort of summary or to summarize. Now what should be summarized there? Because through a resume you are going to summarize about yourself. So a resume can be understood as a detailed document which describes your achievements, over past years and your future intentions also, because you are going to apply for a job, and the first step in this regard is to get an interview call, and it is for that interview call that we feel the need of writing a resume. Once you prepare a resume, only then that resume can be sent. So a resume is a detailed document which describes your achievements and also your future intentions. Now what are the things that a resume includes? It includes one's career goals, information about one's career goals, also about the details of one's education, work experience, activities, honors, rewards, awards, and any special skills that one might have. Friends, when organizations give advertisements to select candidates, the first thing before them is to know about the candidate, and that can be done only through a resume. Applications are invited. Now there is one thing that all of you should be very careful about. Whenever you are submitting a resume, you are also supposed to write an application letter. We shall be talking in detail about all this, because once you know clearly about the requirements of resume, about the purposes, you will be able to draft your resume in a better way, because it has been seen that the first round of selection is only through the resume, meaning thereby the purpose of every resume is to enkindle, is to create interest towards your candidature by the recruiting agencies or by the organizations. So, the purposes of a resume is to kindle or to create interest in your candidature. Moreover, resume which organizations may get in good numbers will help the organizations to see candidates from various parts of the world, people having various backgrounds, different sorts of experience, skills. So, through a resume you are going to create interest. One has to remember that though we say that through resume you are going to talk about your achievements, your educational background, your goals, your experience, your skills and various other activities, because when an organization looks for candidates, he looks for a prospective candidate who can be of much use to the organizations. Now, let us try to understand what can be the requirements of a standard resume. Though we have already said that a resume will talk about the details about a candidate, but then there are certain things, because the first elimination round for any selection is your resume, and your main task is to get an interview call. Many resumes which are not properly drafted or which are not properly framed, they actually fail to create interest among the recruiters or organizations, and hence even with the best capabilities that you have, and if you are not able to tell. Now, the question is, many people under the impression that their resume should be weighty, their resume should be too detailed. They actually fail to understand what the recruiters are looking for, and their resumes are not considered. So, it is time for us to know the requirements of a standard resume. Many organizations they provide you a sort of pro forma for resume, but there are certain organizations which actually wants to test the candidate's ability, and that is why they do not provide any format, but then you have to develop your own format. So, the first thing today is, we are living in an age where we are guided by computers and other gadgets. So, no handwritten resume is required today. Today your resume has to be properly formatted. So, a format. So, when I say format, I mean a sort of format which tells the other person in a very systematic manner about your achievements, activities, honors, awards, rewards, skills and other required things. Moreover, every resume has to be specific. We shall discuss when we talk about drafting the resume what actually we mean by specific. Suppose any organization has advertised for a particular job, and there they require people having those specific skills. But since many of us who are sitting idle and waiting for these advertisements, we, without understanding the needs of the organization, we apply. So, there perhaps we do not become specific. So you have to be specific when you are drafting your resume. Your resume has to be very specific. Moreover, half of the candidate show their skill and ability through their resume. That is why they expect you to write in a language that is free from grammatical errors, because you are in a way exposing your linguistic knowledge. You may not be a very great scholar in terms of language, but when you are talking about yourself, at least the sort of language you have written has to be free from grammatical errors, spelling errors. So all these things, they actually reveal a lot about your personality. We have already talked in some of the lectures what a good personality is, because the recruiters are not only looking for a person with having a very good CGPA and all, but they are also looking for good people, good person, and they are also looking for certain traits we shall discuss later. So when you are writing your resume, we have to see that your resume is not only specific, but it is free from errors. I mean, it should be error free. And then there is another requirement, which is the use of language. When you use language, it is not that you will express everything in sentences and in a form of essay describing. Of course, it is a description, but the description has to be provided in a way that it is broken into certain units, as you will see when we show you for properly formatted resume and all. Moreover, they also see to it that you use crisp phrases, you make use of specific words. We have already discussed a lot about what we mean by words which speak and words which do not speak. When we were discussing the requirements of a report, you might have seen what sort of language is expected, and then you also have to use action verbs. By action verbs, we mean verbs that speak. There are certain words, you will find that there are certain words which are there, but they do not have the function as it should have. Now, before going to draft your resume, you have to analyze yourself. We said in the previous lecture also, when you are analyzing yourself, if you remember, I had said you have to know who you are. So who you are meaning thereby your knowledge, your skills, experience, traits, and then let us come to the word specific. When a particular position is advertised in a particular organization, please see the requirements. What requirements are there? If you do not fulfill the requirement, naturally you do not stand a chance to be called, because your main aim is to get an interview call. And then you should also see whether you have special skills in you. You see, when we are going to talk about, or we are going to expect a person who has got some sort of expertise in programming, some sort of expertise in drafting, expertise in terms of a knowledge of a particular area and all, these are okay, but apart from these you need to have some special skills. Now, what are these special skills? Special skills today, because today people want employees who can be used, or who is not confined only to one department or only to one skill. You are expected to have several skills, such as, are you proficient in terms of uses of computer? Do you have computer proficiency? Because we are going to talk about a paperless office in the days to come, hence nothing will be submitted in writing, everything has to be formatted. So you need to have computer proficiency, that is one special skill. Then there are organizations where we have multicultural atmosphere, and then also some people expect that if we have some who can have some more knowledge apart from, I mean, knowledge about some other languages. So do you have a foreign language efficiency? So naturally your chances are more than others. Then do you excel in writing? can you write effectively, because today it is not only to work with the machines, but the task is to develop interpersonal skills, human skills, and then soft skills, which comprise all these things that we are discussing. And then do you also have problem solving skills? These are required. These can be testified and justified through different ways depending upon the interviewers. But then you need to mention, can you take decisions, can you make decisions? So do you have decision making skills also? So these are some of the special skills. There can be some other skills also we shall be discussing. Apart from these skills, recruiters also look for personal attributes or personal traits. If a person says that I am good at a particular thing, that's okay. But organizations require good human being, and good human being also are expected to have certain personal attributes, because today's organizations are people organization. I mean, we have to deal with people, and when you have to deal with people sorry, when you are going to deal with people, you are supposed to have certain traits, and these traits include enthusiasm. I mean, you have been given a task and you simply think that this is not for you, or you take the task half-heartedly, of course the result will also be half-hearted. So you are supposed to have enthusiasm, that is one trait. Then initiative, we have already seen when discussing group communication skills, how people can come out and stand out from the crowd as becoming a leader. So do you have these skills? Can you take initiative? Can you be the person who can lead the group? Do you have motivation? Because we are working in an age where you need to motivate others, not only by your knowledge but by your action. Are you also adaptable? Can you adapt yourself according to the changing situations? We have already discussed how at times there may be change of certain policies, procedures, and are you every organization looks forward to having people who can change according to the changing needs and patterns. Then you should also possess a good sense of humor. All of us are working, and when you work too much, maybe people require some sort of respite, and that is possible, because when you are working in groups, when you are working with people, you have to show that you are friendly. So these are the personal attributes, and again, after having explored these traits in us, let us also come to the part of education and experience. Now what does our resume in terms of education have to display? I mean, the details of your educational qualification, meaning thereby your school, college, and then university, and then if you have some other courses. So these also become a part of your resume. Again, when it comes to experience, you will find that those who are already in jobs, they have got experience, but those who are simply applying for an entry level job, they do not have experience rather. But what should they show in terms of experience when they are talking about their first job and drafting their first resume? Actually, you as a student might have got several opportunities to participate in group tasks, even during your college fests, techno fests, during cognizance. So many fests are there, and you could show that you participated. But remember, even if you have participated, you should show, you should reflect what was your role. As I have said earlier also, and I will repeat, you should never overestimate yourself even when you are going to describe yourself. Then there are times when you are given group projects. Suppose you had to write a report and the report was given to a group of students. So that is also a sort of experience which can be mentioned. Again, after education, when it comes to experience, all this experience, even small or short, they be for a brief span of time, they have to be mentioned, because through that you are giving the organizers or organizational heads a sort of indication about your caliber. So list all experiences, some responsibilities you have been provided with, because throughout your college and school life, it is not that you are simply developing your educational skills, you are also developing your other skills where you participate, because organizations look forward to such people, as from time to time you can also be expected to take these responsibilities. So also mention responsibilities and accomplishments which are of great value. And then comes references. Now there is when you are writing a resume, you should also have, because through references organizations can contact these people, and in order to verify, it has often been seen that when they get a resume and they feel a person worth for them, they can talk to the referees. Now the question is, when it comes to references, who are the people we should refer to? If you are an experienced person, you can also refer to your former employers, previous employers. That is why from time to time I have been saying that those who are in jobs, they should maintain a very sound relationship with their employers. Even if you are living in a family, at times there may be some sort of miscommunications, but that does not create a sort of enmity. So and when you have worked in a particular organization, you should have a sort of loyalty, and the time that you have spent, that should be recalled with a feeling of greatness, even though you are leaving that organization. So when it comes to giving the names of reference, please see, you can refer to or provide the references of former employers. So former employers, and then if you are in a present organization, working in a present organization, and you want to improve your chances by going to some other organization, you can mention your current employer as well. Especially for students, those who are applying for jobs, they have to ensure, of course, they cannot have the experience of former employers. Sometimes you can also refer to the names of some of your colleagues who were once upon a time employees with you, so they can also provide a sort of reference. Especially students, if they have taken a project and worked with some organization for a very brief span of time, they can also make references to those people, because they know about you, and for them the best references can be their professors, professors under whom you have worked. Moreover, care has to be taken that references should be references should be only employers, professors, but not people. When I say people, what I mean by, sometimes we give the names of references of our relatives. Our relatives will always talk about good things about you. So it is, and of course there is no justification. So organizations especially, they want to see that the referees tell them the truth, and in order they can tell them the truth about you, they need to understand, they need to know what is your caliber. That is why references are needed. But remember, don't give references unless asked for. There is one way that in reference column you can always say if required. Sometimes they have written if required or if asked, but if asked provide, otherwise not. So don't do anything from your own side. Now we come to the format of the employees. You have understood what are the requirements of a resume. Now let us try to understand the format of a resume. What will be the format of a resume? What are the types of resume? Resumes can be of three types. The first being chronological. Chronology, as you know, chronological, that means something that is based on time. So chronological resumes especially are important for people who are already experienced. So they can provide a chronological references where they mention not only about their qualification, their age, their other details, but they also mention such people have lots of experiences, and that is why it is called chronological. And so they provide the experiences in a chronological order, starting from the latest one to the earliest one. So that gives the other people a sort of indication about your work of nature, style of your work nature, your style of functioning and all. Then comes so since if you are only a new person, especially going for entry level jobs, this chronological may not sound better. Then comes functional. So functional resumes are also called skill resumes, functional resume. So chronological, then functional. Functional is especially for entry level people, especially for those youngsters who are going to apply for a job, so they can give a functional resume. This is also called a skill resume, where you are going to mention about your skills. And then there can be the third one, which we can either call hybrid or combinational. It is a mix of both chronological and functional. So these are actually the forms of resume. Then having understood the forms of the resume, let us plan. You have already planned a lot, you have gathered a lot of information about yourself. Now you have to think, when you are going to draft, how you are going to make it suitable according to your audience. Now in this case, who is your audience? Your audiences are the recruiters, the organizations which actually require. So now one thing also of paramount importance is, when you are going to draft your resume, project your positive image. What do we mean by positive image? For example, there are certain skills, special skills you have talked. Even apart from special skills, there are some more skills. There are some skills which you can learn. There are some skills which you are gifted with. For example, and you have to tell them. You have to tell them. When I say tell them in the resume, I mean sell them in the resume. So, but you are to sell in such a manner, and there you have to make use of language. For example, you can say academically gifted, leader. Now these are the skills. Through these you are actually creating your room, your space in the organization people's mind. So you are going to create a sort of opportunity, and then it is always better if you do not overestimate yourself. Dear friends, your resume has to be drafted around your strengths. You know, every individual has got some strengths and weaknesses, but it is up to us how you can project your image, how you can build your image through your resume. For example, all of us may have some good qualities, some bad qualities, but sometimes you will find that if you explore within, you will find that there are so many good qualities within you, so many good traits within you. So relate your best features, but relegate your weaknesses. You may have certain weaknesses, but these weaknesses are to be left. Because you are going to sell, so sell your positive things. Suppose you are an experienced person, you have got several job changes, you have got several gaps, so these things also must be mentioned, but when mentioning them, be accurate, write things which are relevant. And then if you have served for a longer period in an organization, that will also work better for you, because that will provide them a sort of opportunity to hire an experienced person. And when you are going to discuss all these things, that we will discuss when we will be talking about facing the interview. And if sometimes you may not give the right information about yourself, that you have been terminated and whatsoever, but sometimes they may put such questions also. So even if it is there, you know better what was the reason. So sometimes if you tell them the real issue, they are also people like you and me, so they can also understand things. So when you are going to draft your resume, please take care of all these things, take these things into consideration. You have to build your resume around your strengths, as I said. So computer skills, you have other skills also apart from that, and then you are also going to talk about your nature. Are you gregarious? Are you only an individual? Are you a self-starter? You are a manager? You are a good speaker, a good writer, a creative and communicative person? So all these things will help you have an edge over others when it comes to your resume, which can be written in an effective manner. Moreover, you should also understand how to, when you have gathered all these pieces of information, you also might be worried as to how to how to draft your resume. So the first thing, again, we'll also be talking about the length of the resume. Many people often think what should be the length, especially for entry level people, the length can only be 1 to 1.5 pages. It is not important that if you have a longer resume, you will be considered more. Sometimes people say two things about it. Sometimes people say if your resume is very shorter, you will not be considered. Even if it is shorter, suppose if it is 1 page only, but if it has mentioned the qualities and the skills that you have, you are bound to be called for an interview. So the first thing in a resume is the opening. In opening, you have to mention the heading, then the career objective, summary of qualification. So now what is heading? Heading is about you, your details, your name and other things as well. Then career objective, what actually do you want to? Why do you want this job? And what is your career objective? What is your long-term goal, short-term goal? The summary of the qualification. So when you start the resume, the first thing in the heading is to write exactly your name. I mean the real name that is on your certificate. You see, especially the youngsters who are aspiring job seekers, they should realize these things, because many people do not know how to write an effective resume, and that is where they lose their chances of being called. So put your name, your permanent and campus address, your phone number, the phone number that also, it is not the phone number. Nowadays people change their numbers frequently, but remember, when you are giving one number on your resume, this number should exist, because if the prospective employer wants you to contact, he will contact on that number only. Moreover, an email address that you frequently check, that is also to be done, that is also to be mentioned. And don't write your nickname. Some people also have a sort of URL. Nowadays many guys often have their own pages also. So mention the URL or the page if somebody wants to know more about you, some employer wants to know more about you. When it comes to heading, as I have said, it should have your name, your address, phone number, email, URL, etc. Now after this heading, you have to come to career objective. What is the career objective? sometimes it has been seen that people apply for a job, and when they mention their career objective, they mention it in such a manner that it becomes too much of generalized one. Whereas when you are going to apply for a job, they actually require people with a specific qualification and having a specific career objective, because it is through the career objective that you are going to express your aim. So, say you can have a look at here how, when you are going to write your career objective: to obtain a position as a software engineer allowing me to utilize my knowledge of Oracle and Linux. So, here through this the organizations will come to know, the recruiters will come to know something about your special skills. To obtain a post of marketing support representative where skills in administration and management, program development, public relations and writing can be used. Here the job seeker has already given an indication that he is interested in these areas: program development, public relations and writing. And then you can also provide summary of qualification, meaning thereby the highest, you will start with the highest qualification and then you will come to, so this has to be in a systematic order. So, graduate with BTech in computer science with specialization. Now, when we say specialization in networking, sometimes people may also say specialization in something else. So, through this you are going to create a chance in the mind of the recruiters, and you also have to use active statements. When you are writing your resume, you will find many people make it a mix of the two. Sometimes they write in sentences, sometimes they write in phrases, and whenever they write, they will write in such a manner, for example, say, I was in charge of fluid mechanics and hydraulic machine lab for 2 years. So, this is how they write. It is not the right way, rather the action words. So, words which only in the beginning speak. For example, if we say supervised, streamlined, these are words which speak. You cannot say helped. Help is a very weak word. Now, here are some action verbs you will find. I request all of you to go through these slides very carefully, which will give you a detailed discussion and detailed explanation about what things should be included in your resume. Now, these are the action verbs: accomplished, assisted, demonstrated, identified, investigated, participated, and you will find all these are given in past tense. So, they actually tell the other people that you have done all this. Now, we are not going to talk about length here, because you will see in these slides the length should be 1 to 1.5 pages, 1.5. Moreover, use good quality papers, because in certain situations your resume has to be a scannable resume. I mean, people may simply, you may have to submit it through attachment and they may scan. So, you should be very careful while doing all these things. Now, when you are applying to a particular organization, the first thing that you will write is the identifying information, which will include in the application that will be attached to your resume. Now, some do's and don'ts. Here you have to see what are the things that you should do when planning to write a resume, and what are the things that you should actually avoid. So, you have to mention all the major activities, job objective, use proper headlines, be very honest, and estimate yourself very properly. And especially for those people who are applying for jobs frequently, they have to keep updating their resume from time to time. You have to be specific. Moreover, your resume is not your autobiography. So, don't write everything. You have to mention whatever is required, and also you have to list your, sometimes we say we list your achievements, but please do not list your strength. Leave something so that in interview you can also speak about those things. Don't mention about the salary and all, don't criticize your previous employer. So, if you keep all these things into consideration, you are in a good position to write an effective resume, which we shall be discussing in the next lecture to follow. I wish you are enjoying and you are learning a lot, because we want you to come and apply for a job with a proper resume so that you may get an interview call, and your expectations and your statements that you have provided in the resume should also match in reality with what you are. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.